She was sold for 3 horses and a winter's worth of grain. The wind cut through the trading post like a blade, carrying the scent of snow and desperation. Anna pressed her back against the rough timber wall, watching the Lakota elder count the provisions with weathered fingers. Her own people had cast her out months ago when her white father abandoned their village. Now even her mother's tribe saw her as burden. The man who bought her stood silent in the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of storm clouds. His hands hung loose at his sides, calloused from years of hard work. He wore no wedding ring, spoke no unnecessary words. "She comes with nothing," the elder said in broken English. "That's fine," the stranger replied, his voice rough as bark. He stepped forward, boots echoing against the wooden floor. "My name is Samuel." Anna kept her eyes down. She had learned that looking directly at men only brought trouble. The cold seeped through her worn deerskin dress, but she didn't shiver. Showing weakness was dangerous. Samuel counted out silver coins with deliberate precision. Each clink against the counter felt like a nail in a coffin. The transaction complete, the elder turned away without another glance at Anna. She was no longer his concern. "Come," Samuel said quietly. "My wagon's outside." The November sky stretched grey and endless above them. Hannah climbed into the wagon bed without assistance, settling among sacks of flour and farming tools. Samuel took the reins, but didn't speak. The horses' breath steamed in the bitter air as they pulled away from the trading post. Mile after mile of prairie rolled past. Anna watched Samuel's broad back, noting how he held the reins with gentle firmness. His hat shadowed his face, but she caught glimpses of profile. Strong jaw, straight nose, a scar along his temple that spoke of old violence. As evening approached, he stopped near a cluster of cottonwoods. "We'll camp here tonight," he said, beginning to unhitch the horses. "There's blankets in the wagon, food too if you're hungry." Anna remained silent, unsure of her place in this strange new arrangement. Was she servant, property, something else entirely? The uncertainty gnawed at her more than hunger. Samuel built a small fire with practiced efficiency. He cooked beans and cornbread in a cast-iron pot, the aroma making Anna's stomach clench with need. When he offered her a plate, she took it with trembling hands. "Eat," he said gently. "There's plenty." She ate slowly, watching him across the flickering flames. He consumed his food without haste, occasionally glancing at her with those storm-gray eyes. The silence between them wasn't hostile, but it carried weight. After supper, Samuel spread his bedroll on one side of the fire, then gestured to the wagon. "You'll be warmer up there. I put extra blankets out." Anna nodded and climbed into the wagon bed. She lay awake for hours, listening to the prairie wind and Samuel's steady breathing. In the darkness, she wondered what tomorrow would bring, what her life had become. The ranch appeared at midday like a mirage shimmering against the endless grassland. Anna gripped the wagon's edge as they approached the modest homestead. A 2-story house sat surrounded by corrals and outbuildings, all weathered gray by sun and storm. Cattle dotted the pastures beyond, their lowing carried on the wind. Samuel guided the horses through the gate and stopped near the front porch. "This is home," he said simply, climbing down from the driver's seat. Anna hesitated before accepting his offered hand. His palm was warm, calloused from rope and leather. The moment their skin touched, something flickered in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or surprise. The house smelled of cedar and old coffee. Samuel led her through rooms furnished with handmade tables and chairs, everything practical and clean. Sunlight streamed through windows that faced east toward the rising ground. "This was my wife's room," he said, stopping before a closed door. His voice caught slightly on the word, wife. "You can use it. There's clothes in the wardrobe. Might need taking in, but they're warm." Anna pushed open the door to find a feminine space frozen in time. Delicate curtains framed the window. A wedding dress hung in the wardrobe beside everyday dresses and shawls. On the dressing table sat silver brushes and a hand mirror. "She died 3 winters ago," Samuel continued from the doorway. "Fever took her quick. I haven't been able to change anything." The pain in his voice made Anna turn. For the first time, she truly looked at him. Saw the grief carved into the lines around his eyes, the way his shoulders carried invisible weight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The first words she'd spoken since leaving the trading post. Samuel's gaze met hers, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Two people acquainted with loss. "There's soup in the kitchen when you're ready," he said. "Take your time getting settled." Alone in the room, Anna touched the wedding dress with reverent fingers. The fabric was silk, imported from back east at considerable expense. She could imagine the woman who wore it, blonde probably, delicate. Everything Anna wasn't. She selected a simple blue dress from the wardrobe and changed from her deerskin clothes. The fabric felt strange against her skin, soft, clean. The dress hung loose on her smaller frame, but the length was right. In the kitchen, Samuel ladled soup into bowls. "Thought you might be tired of trail food," he said, setting a bowl before her. The soup was rich with beef and vegetables, seasoned with herbs Anna couldn't identify. She ate gratefully while Samuel sat across from her, occasionally glancing out the window toward his cattle. "I run about 200 head," he said conversationally. "Spring calving keeps me busy. Could use help with the chickens and garden come planting time." Anna nodded, understanding her role. Work. Purpose. It was more than she'd expected. That evening, Samuel read by lamplight while Anna explored the house. She found evidence of the previous woman everywhere. Recipe cards in neat handwriting, embroidered pillowcases, a half-finished quilt stretched on a frame. "Her name was Margaret," Samuel said when Anna paused beside a daguerreotype on the mantel. "Maggie. We had 5 good years together." In the photograph, Margaret smiled beside a younger Samuel. She was indeed blonde, with kind eyes and a gentle expression. Anna could see why he'd loved her. "She would have liked you," Samuel added quietly. Anna studied his face in the lamplight. "How can you be sure?" She had a soft heart for strays, always taking in injured animals, said everything deserved a chance to heal. The words hung in the air between them. Anna understood she was the latest stray, but something in Samuel's tone suggested she might be more than that, given time. That night, she lay in Margaret's bed wearing Margaret's nightgown, staring at the ceiling. The sheets smelled of lavender. Outside, coyotes called across the prairie, their voices lonely and wild. Down the hall, she could hear Samuel moving about his room, preparing for sleep in a house too big and quiet for one person. Anna closed her eyes and tried to imagine what tomorrow might bring in this place caught between past and possibility. Morning came with the sound of Samuel chopping wood outside her window. Anna dressed quickly and found him at the woodpile, his shirt already damp with sweat despite the cool air. The axe rose and fell with steady rhythm, splitting logs with practiced efficiency. She watched the play of muscles across his back, the sure way he handled the heavy tool. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Coffee's on the stove." In the kitchen, Anna poured coffee into 2 cups and stepped onto the porch. Samuel paused in his work to accept the cup, their fingers brushing again as he took it. That same flicker of awareness passed between them. "Thank you," he said, drinking deeply. "Sleep all right?" Anna nodded, though she'd spent most of the night listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the house. Creaking boards, wind in the eaves, Samuel's restless movements in the room next door. "I'll show you around today," Samuel continued. "The animals need tending. Garden needs preparing for winter." They walked the property together, Samuel explaining the rhythms of ranch life. The cattle required checking twice daily, chickens needed feeding and eggs collecting. The well water was sweet, but the pump handle stuck sometimes. Anna absorbed every detail, eager to prove useful. She couldn't repay her purchase price in silver, but she could earn her keep through labor. In the chicken coop, she knelt to gather eggs while the hens clucked around her feet. Samuel watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. "You know animals," he observed. "My grandmother kept chickens," Anna replied. Before, she didn't finish the sentence, but Samuel understood. Before her world fell apart, before she became a burden, before the trading post. The days settled into routine. Anna rose early to tend the chickens and prepare breakfast. Samuel worked the cattle while she managed the garden and household tasks. Evenings found them sharing meals and quiet conversation. Slowly, Anna began to relax in Samuel's presence. He never raised his voice or hand, never demanded more than she could give. His kindness was steady, reliable as sunrise. but she caught him watching her sometimes with an expression that made her pulse quicken. Not the look of a man viewing his property, but something deeper, more complex. One evening, as Anna mended one of Samuel's shirts by lamplight, he set down his book and studied her profile. "You don't have to do that," he said quietly. "I want to," Anna replied, not looking up from her needlework. "You've been kind. Let me be useful." "You're more than useful. You're—" He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. Anna raised her eyes to meet his. In the golden lamplight, his face was all planes and shadows, handsome in a weathered, lived-in way. "I'm what?" she prompted softly. Samuel reached across the space between their chairs and covered her hand with his. His palm was warm, gentle. "You're bringing this place back to life." The shirt slipped from Anna's lap as his thumb traced across her knuckles. She should pull away, remember her position, but the tenderness in his touch made her want to lean closer instead. "Samuel," she whispered, uncertain what she meant to say. "I know," he replied, understanding the conflict in her voice. "I know this complicates things." But he didn't release her hand, and Anna didn't pull away. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and reminding them both of the approaching winter. Soon they would be truly alone together, isolated by snow and cold. The thought should have frightened Anna. Instead, it filled her with something dangerously close to anticipation. The first snow came early, trapping them in a world of white silence. Anna woke to find ice flowers blooming across her bedroom window. Outside, the familiar landscape had transformed into something foreign and beautiful. Fence posts wore white caps. The barn disappeared behind veils of falling snow. Samuel was already up. She could hear him moving around the kitchen. When she emerged from her room, she found him at the stove preparing a larger breakfast than usual. "Storm's going to last a few days," he said without turning around. "Best eat well while we can keep the fire going strong." Anna moved to the window, watching snow pile against the glass. "How do you know?" "The way the wind sounds. How the cattle bunched up yesterday evening." Samuel glanced at her, noting her fascination with the storm. "First blizzard?" Anna nodded. Growing up, she'd experienced cold winters, but nothing like this overwhelming whiteness that erased the world beyond the porch. "We're well prepared," Samuel assured her. "Plenty of food, good shelter. The animals are secure." After breakfast, they settled into the strange intimacy of confinement. Samuel fed the fire while Anna worked on Margaret's abandoned quilt. The rhythmic work soothed her nerves, even as she grew increasingly aware of Samuel's presence in the small space. He moved around the house with quiet efficiency, checking windows, adjusting dampers, ensuring their safety. But Anna caught him pausing to watch her bent over the quilting frame, his gaze lingering on her face in the firelight. "Margaret started that the winter before she died," he said eventually. Anna's hands stilled on the fabric. "I could finish something else if you prefer." "No." Samuel's voice was firm. She'd want it completed. She never could stand leaving things unfinished. The morning stretched into afternoon with the snow still falling. They shared a simple lunch, their conversation growing easier as the storm created a sense of suspended time. Outside, obligations disappeared, past and future blurred. Only this warm room and their growing comfort with each other remained. "Tell me about your grandmother," Samuel said as Anna returned to her needlework. Anna smiled, remembering. She was small, but fierce. Could make the best fry bread for miles around. She taught me to read the signs in nature, which plants healed, which storms brought trouble. What would she think of all this? Anna considered the question seriously. She would say the spirits brought me here for a reason, that nothing happens without purpose. Samuel leaned forward in his chair. "Do you believe that?" Anna met his gaze across the space between them. "I'm beginning to." Evening found them sharing supper by candlelight when the wind knocked out the lamp. The intimacy of the small flames flickered between them, casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Anna," Samuel said suddenly, his voice rough with something unnamed. She looked up from her plate to find him studying her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The storm forgotten, the world narrowed to this moment, this man, this feeling growing between them despite every reason it shouldn't. "What is it?" she whispered. Samuel rose from his chair and moved to kneel beside hers. His hand reached up to touch her cheek with infinite gentleness. "You're so beautiful in this light." Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. "Samuel, we shouldn't—" "I know," he said, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "I know all the reasons why, but I can't pretend anymore that I don't care for you." The admission hung between them like a bridge neither could cross back over. Anna leaned into his touch despite herself, her eyes fluttering closed. "This isn't why I brought you here," Samuel continued. "I want you to know that. But having you in this house, seeing you laugh, watching you bring everything back to life, Anna, I think I'm falling in love with you." The confession shattered the careful distance they'd maintained. Anna opened her eyes to find Samuel's face inches from hers, his expression vulnerable and hopeful. The firelight caught the silver threading through his dark hair, emphasized the lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent squinting into prairie sun. "You don't know me," Anna whispered, though her hand came up to cover his, where it rested against her cheek. "Not really. I know you're gentle with frightened animals. I know you hum while you work. I know you check the door locks twice before bed, because you've learned not to trust safety." Samuel's voice was low, intimate. "I know you cry sometimes at night when you think I can't hear." Anna's breath caught. She hadn't realized her grief was so audible through the thin walls. "I know you're brave," Samuel continued, "because you're still here, still trying, still believing tomorrow might be better than yesterday." Outside, the wind howled like a living thing, but inside the house felt smaller, warmer, charged with possibility. "I was sold," Anna said, needing him to understand the full truth. "Like cattle, like property." "You were traded," Samuel corrected gently. "There's a difference, and now you're free to choose." The word choose hung between them, weighted with meaning. Anna had been given so few choices in her life. Her father chose to leave. Her mother's people chose to cast her out. The Lakota chose to trade her. But Samuel was offering her agency, the power to decide her own path. "What are you asking of me?" she whispered. Samuel's thumb traced across her lower lip. "Nothing you don't want to give. Everything you're willing to share." The space between them disappeared. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of coffee and possibility, gentle at first, then deeper as Anna melted against him. His arms came around her, strong and protective, and for the first time in months she felt truly safe. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Samuel rested his forehead against hers. "I want to court you properly, the way you deserve. Not because I bought you, but because I'm choosing you, and I hope you'll choose me back." Anna's heart swelled with an emotion she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. "Samuel, think about it," he said, pulling back to meet her eyes. "Take all the time you need." But Anna didn't need time. She'd been watching this man for weeks, noting his kindness to animals, his quiet competence, the way he spoke of Margaret with respect rather than possessiveness. She'd seen him leave food on her bedside table when she was too proud to ask for seconds, watched him bite his tongue when she broke his late wife's favorite cup. "I choose you," she said simply. "I choose this." Samuel's smile transformed his entire face, making him look years younger. "Are you certain?" Instead of answering with words, Anna kissed him again, pouring all her gratitude and growing affection into the connection. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside they had found shelter in each other. They spent the evening talking by the fire, sharing stories from their pasts, dreams for their future. Samuel told her about his plans to expand the herd come spring. Anna spoke tentatively about wanting to plant a larger garden, maybe learn to preserve vegetables for sale in town. "We could build something good here," Samuel said, his arm around her shoulders as they watched the flames dance. "Together." Anna nestled closer to his warmth. "Yes, I believe we could." Neither spoke of the obstacles that lay ahead, the questions from townspeople, the complications of their unconventional beginning. For now, it was enough to sit in the circle of firelight and plan for a future that seemed, for the first time, worth reaching toward. Spring arrived with the sound of debt collectors riding up the lane. Anna was hanging laundry when she spotted the 3 riders approaching the house. Her blood turned to ice as she recognized the lead man's distinctive black hat and silver-trimmed saddle. Joseph Crow Feather, the Lakota warrior who'd arranged her sale to pay his gambling debts. She dropped the wet sheet back into the basket and ran for the house. Samuel was in the barn, too far away to reach in time. Her hands shook as she bolted the front door and peered through the window. The men dismounted with casual arrogance, their horses steaming in the cool morning air. Crow Feather wore a mixture of traditional and white man's clothing, beaded vest over cotton shirt. His long hair braided with silver ornaments. The other two were rough-looking white men with guns prominently displayed. "Samuel Thompson," Crow Feather called out. "We need to talk." Anna pressed herself against the wall beside the window, heart hammering. She'd known this day might come. The original debt had been larger than 3 horses and grain. She'd been partial payment, not complete settlement. Heavy boots crossed the porch. Crow Feather's fist pounded on the door. "I know you're in there, girl. Come out." The barn door slammed open, and Samuel emerged, rifle in hand. Anna watched through the window as he strode across the yard with deadly purpose, his face set in hard lines. "You're trespassing," Samuel said, his voice carrying clearly on the morning air. Crow Feather smiled, showing gold teeth. "We have business to discuss." "About the woman." "She's not your concern anymore." "Actually, she is." Crow Feather pulled a paper from his vest pocket. "The debt wasn't fully paid. I need her back, or you pay the difference." Anna could see Samuel's knuckles whiten on his rifle stock. "How much?" $100, or the woman returns with us." The sum was staggering. More money than most ranchers saw in a year. Samuel's jaw worked as he calculated options, none of them good. "I need time to raise that kind of money," he said finally. "You have 3 days." Crow Feather remounted his horse with fluid grace. "If we don't see payment by sunset Friday, the woman comes with us. She'll work off the debt in other ways." The implication in his tone made Anna's skin crawl. She understood now what awaited her if Samuel couldn't pay. She'd become property again, but this time to men with no interest in her welfare. After the riders disappeared down the lane, Samuel stood motionless in the yard for long minutes. When he finally turned toward the house, Anna saw defeat written in every line of his body. She opened the door before he could knock. "I heard everything." Samuel set his rifle aside and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. She could feel the rapid beating of his heart, smell the fear sweat on his skin. "I'll find the money," he said fiercely. "I'll sell cattle, the horses, whatever it takes." Anna pulled back to look at him. "Samuel, even if you sell everything, it won't be enough. And then what? We'll have nothing left to build our life on. I won't let them take you." "Maybe I should go." The words tasted like ashes, but Anna forced herself to say them. "I won't destroy everything you've worked for." Samuel's hands framed her face with desperate tenderness. "Don't even think that. You're more important than any of this." But Anna could see the calculations in his eyes, the same hopeless arithmetic she'd been running. There was no solution that didn't require sacrifice. That night, they lay awake in Samuel's bed where Anna had moved after their courtship began, both pretending to sleep while their minds raced through impossible scenarios. "There might be another way," Anna said into the darkness. Samuel's arm tightened around her. "What do you mean?" "My grandmother once told me that some debts can only be paid with blood." "Anna, no." But she was already planning, her mind working through possibilities. 3 days wasn't much time, but it might be enough if she was clever, if she was brave, if she was willing to risk everything for the man who'd shown her what love could be. Anna rose before dawn on the 3rd day, moving silently through the house while Samuel slept. She dressed in her old deerskin clothes, the ones she'd worn when first brought to the ranch. They felt strange now after months of cotton dresses, but they would serve her purpose. In the kitchen, she wrote a letter on Margaret's fine stationery, her hand steady despite her racing heart. Samuel would be angry when he woke to find her gone, but anger was better than watching him sacrifice everything for her sake. She'd caused enough destruction in her short life. Time to end the pattern. Anna saddled Samuel's fastest horse, a bay mare named Star who'd always been gentle with her. The sun was just touching the horizon as she rode toward town, toward whatever fate awaited. But instead of heading directly to the saloon, where she knew Crow Feather would be waiting, Anna made a detour to the sheriff's office. She found Sheriff Martinez already at his desk. a man she'd met briefly during their few trips to town. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, rising courteously. "What brings you out so early?" Anna had never corrected anyone's assumption about her marital status. Let them think what they would. "I need to report a crime, Sheriff. Extortion." Martinez's eyebrows rose as Anna explained the situation, showing him the paper Crow Feather had left. The sheriff studied the document with growing interest. "This isn't a legitimate debt instrument," he said finally. "It's not properly witnessed or notarized. Looks like someone's trying to run a confidence game." Anna's heart leaped. "You mean it's not legal?" "I mean Joseph Crow Feather has been working this territory for months, targeting isolated ranchers with fake debt claims. We've been building a case against him." Relief flooded through Anna like warm honey. "Then Samuel doesn't owe anything?" "Not a penny." Martinez reached for his hat. "But we'll need you to help us catch them in the act." "Are you willing?" Anna thought of Samuel waking to find her gone, of the fear he'd feel when he couldn't find her. But this might be their only chance to end the threat permanently. "What do you need me to do?" An hour later, Anna walked into the Silver Dollar Saloon alone. Crow Feather sat at a corner table with his two companions, counting money from their previous marks. He smiled when he saw her. "Smart woman," he said, rising to greet her. "Where's your protector?" "He couldn't raise the money," Anna replied, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "He sent me to negotiate." Crow Feather's smile turned predatory. "Nothing to negotiate. You work off the debt or we take it out of your hide." "Actually," said Sheriff Martinez, emerging from behind the bar with two deputies, "I think you gentlemen will be working off a debt to the territory. You're under arrest for fraud and extortion." The confrontation was brief but violent. One of Crow Feather's men reached for his gun and earned a deputy's billy club across his skull. Crow Feather himself tried to dive through a window, but found himself face to face with Samuel, who'd ridden hard to town after finding Anna's letter. "She's not going anywhere with you," Samuel said, his rifle trained on the would-be criminal. Later, as they watched Crow Feather and his associates loaded into a prison wagon, Anna felt Samuel's arm slip around her waist. "Don't ever scare me like that again," he murmured against her hair. "I had to protect what's ours," Anna replied. "The way you would have protected me." Samuel turned her to face him, his eyes bright with emotion. "Partners." Anna smiled, thinking of the life they could build now, free from the shadows of the past. Partners. As the prison wagon disappeared down the dusty street, Anna felt the last chains of her old life fall away. She was no longer property, no longer a burden. She was a woman who'd chosen her path and fought for her future. And the future stretched ahead, bright with possibility. 2 years later, Anna stood in the same kitchen where she'd first tasted Samuel's soup, but now the room bore her own touches. Herbs hung drying from the rafters. Jars of preserved vegetables lined the shelves. A new rocking chair sat by the window, where she could watch the road while mending clothes or shelling beans. The house had become truly theirs, a blend of past and present. Samuel entered from the barn, carrying fresh eggs in a basket. He moved with the same quiet competence she'd fallen in love with, but happiness had softened the hard lines around his eyes. He kissed her cheek as he passed, a casual gesture of affection that still made her heart flutter. "Mrs. Patterson stopped by while you were working," Anna said, not looking up from her bread kneading. "Her husband's laid up with a bad back. I told her we could spare some of those pain herbs you've been growing." Samuel smiled at the "we" in her statement. Everything had become we and ours over the past months, a natural evolution neither had to think about anymore. "Good. Tom helped us with the barn raising. Time to return the favor." Anna nodded, then paused in her kneading. "Samuel, there's something else." Something in her tone made him look up sharply. "What is it?" Anna wiped her hands on her apron, suddenly shy. "I rode to town yesterday, to see Dr. Harrison." Understanding dawned in Samuel's eyes, followed immediately by joy so intense it transformed his entire face. "Anna, are you saying, I'm with child?" The words came out in a rush, followed by Anna's radiant smile. "Due in the spring, he thinks." Samuel crossed to her in 3 quick strides, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around the kitchen. When he set her down, his eyes were bright with tears. "I never thought," he began, then stopped, too overwhelmed to finish. Anna cupped his face in her flour-dusted hands. Neither did I. I never thought I'd have a real family. A home. Someone who chose me because he loved me, not because he needed something from me. Samuel's arms came around her, gentle but secure. I love you more than I thought possible to love another person. They stood together in the kitchen that smelled of rising bread and dried herbs, holding each other and the future growing between them. Outside, cattle lowed in the pasture and chickens scratched in the yard. Normal sounds of a life they'd built together from pieces of brokenness. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the prairie in shades of gold and rose, Anna felt a deep contentment she'd never known existed. Her hand rested on her still flat belly, while Samuel's arm encircled her shoulders. "What do you think she would have thought of all this?" Anna asked, nodding toward the photograph of Margaret that still graced the mantel inside. Samuel considered the question seriously, as he always did when Margaret came up in conversation. "I think she'd be happy we found each other. She never wanted me to be alone." Anna leaned into his warmth, watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. "I hope our children will understand how their story began, that sometimes the best things come from the worst circumstances. They'll understand that love is a choice," Samuel replied, "and that choosing to love someone, even when it's difficult or complicated or unexpected, is the most important thing a person can do." Anna smiled, thinking of the child growing inside her, of the ranch they'd continue to build, of all the choices that had led them to this moment of perfect peace. She'd been sold for 3 horses and a winter's worth of grain, but she'd found something priceless in return. A man who saw her worth, a home where she belonged, a future bright with hope. As the prairie wind whispered through the grass around their homestead, Anna closed her eyes and listened to the sound of contentment. Since that morning 2 years ago, the ranch had never echoed with silence again. Would you have chosen love over safety if you were in Anna's place? Tell us in the comments what this story meant to you, and if you believe in the power of choosing love against all odds. Subscribe for more stories that touch the heart.